Blog Talk Radio.
Come back home to Africa. She's calling your name to win. Come back home to Africa. The fatted calf and golden ring are waiting for you once again. Coming back to you. I'm longing for my family. Coming back to you. Out of bondage and now I am free. Come back home to Africa. She's calling your name to win. Come back home to Africa. The fatted calf and golden ring are waiting for you once again. Coming back to you. I'm longing for my family. Coming back to you. Out of bondage is now I come back home to Africa. Come back home. Come back home to Africa. Come back home. Da 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 da
Greetings, greetings, greetings. Ki Ojo Day. Divine all blessed peace and love, joy and prosperity, elevation, revelations, and divine manifestation. You are now listening again live to the Divine Prince, Pan-African spiritualist, practitioner, author, and advisor, Elogun Odoye Hudu Obeya Bokur, sharing with you in all things spiritual, mystical, metaphysical, cosmic, universal, evolutionary, revolutionary, healing, and holistic from a Pan African hoodoo world spiritualist perspective. Understanding that all is truly and indeed a blessing. If you can just see beyond the veils, for it is all just an illusion and a test, and one of the greatest divine mysteries of this life cycle. This is indeed my constant prayer, my mantra, affirmation, reverberation, reiteration, and it is my ever living reality. It is crucial to the very foundation of my understanding, my inner being, my teaching, my walk, my works along this divine, all blessed life path and journey. It is how I, the Divine Prince, make sense out of all that we are challenged with here in our daily existence on Mother, Father, Earth. And it is my personal place of power and understanding. The place from where I begin, the place from where I realize and crystallize all my endeavors, understanding that I and I alone create and co create my divine destiny, and I alone create and co create my divine, all blessed reality. And so it is. Ashe. Today is May 9th, Thursday, May 9th, 2024. And I am emanating and vibrating with you now live, virtually, verbally, cosmically, quantum universally from this working temple of the house of the Divine Prince, Hoodoo Central LLC, in this legendary, historic, beautiful, and most enchanted city in America, New Orleans, Louisiana, the land of my grandparents and my ancestors and those who came before me along this hoodoo spiritualist Obeah life path and journey, passing down the great Obeah stick, along with the knowledge of the life-giving herbs, roots, plants, ritual spirits, and minerals. As always, I'm truly honored, humbled, grateful for your attendance here for the Power Lunch Revolutionary Hoodoo New Orleans Voodoo Secrets and Recipe. I'm always grateful for your continued support and your listenership. I am going to talk a little bit more today on what we were opening up yesterday. Hoodoo, root work, conjure for social change. Hoodoo for social change and transformation. Hoodoo for community activism. We hear hoodoo, we hear root work, we hear conjure, and fortunately for many, unfortunately, we still hear witchcraft. But indeed, voodoo is nature, and everything that we need, everything that we require for the building of our bodies, minds, soul, and spirit exists within nature. So it might appear like magic. A woman giving birth to a child might appear like magic, but is indeed divine magic. It is divine nature. So we are going to continue today with this topic. Why aren't more people utilizing this sacred power that they project, that they claim to possess, at least in social media? Why are we spending our time on frivolous pursuits? Why are we spending our time and our energy and our focus and our likes on petty, carnal things? Certainly having a great loving relationship house, having great finances, career, education, getting out of a tight bond is a blessing indeed. But our ultimate goal as gods and goddesses, children of the great Mother God, is to manifest divine spirit. We are here to bring about change, transformation, evolution, and yes, in some cases, revolution. During the Second World War, as Hitler was planning an invasion of Britain, English occultist Dion Fortune, born in 1890, died in 1946, created a series of visualizations that her followers in the Fraternity of the Inner Light could perform to protect Britain from a German invasion. This series of magical actions became known as the Magical Battle of Britain. It inspired an American blogger to create a similar magical battle for America from 2017 to 2019, which I examine in my contribution to this special issue. The danger Hitler posed also motivated magical practitioners in the United States to action. In its February 10th, 1941 issue, Life magazine reported on a hex party against Hitler in the state of Maryland woods that involved a dressmaker's dummy, nails, axes, drumming, and plenty of rum. Inspired by sensationalized reports of voodoo in the work of author William Seabrook, a writer of lurid adventure prose, the participants ceremonially bestowed the name of Hitler on the dummy before having it with nails and axes in an alcohol-fueled frenzy. The mutilated mannequin was burned in the woods and left to rot. One of the best-known instances of left-wing political magic in the United States was the attempt to exercise and levitate the Pentagon in opposition to the Vietnam War. On October 21st, 1967, members of the National Mobilization Committee to End the War in Vietnam, a radical anti-war organization, gathered in Washington, D.C., where 35,000 participants joined hands to form a ring around the Pentagon and began chanting an incantation designed to exorcise all evil from the seat of the United States, and particularly the United States military power. Believers expected the Pentagon to vibrate, turn orange, and levitate, bringing about an immediate end to the war. Organizers alleged that they were dispersing LACE, lysergic acid cryptoethylene, a hallucinogenic gas that would lead participants to rip off their clothes and have sex with whomever was closest to them. In reality, there was no lace. There was no lace used as a hallucinogenic gas in this protest. In reality, please forgive me, someone is at my door and I'm a little distracted. They'll figure out that I'm not coming in a moment. In reality, there was no substance, there was no lace, and certainly there were no sexual acts that took place during this protest. In reality, there were no, in reality, there was no substance. What was purported to be lace was actually disappearing ink, disappearing purple ink. Instead of lovemaking, protesters encountered U.S. armed forces who beat them with rifle butts, sprayed them with tear gas, and arrested them. While no one present actually saw the Pentagon levitate, the ritual gained widespread notoriety and led to the formation of the Youth International Party, or Yippies, Yippies with a Y, a protest group that engaged in further theatrical acts of resistance. In New York City, a group of radical feminists reclaimed the word witch, turning it into a symbol of resistance against patriarchy and oppression, and taking inspiration from the Yippies, staging creative protests. So on Halloween 1968, members of the Women's International Conspiracy for Hell, WITCH, Women's International Conspiracy from Hell, dressed as stereotypical witches and marched on Wall Street to hex the New York Stock Exchange. In their first manifesto, they stated, which is theater, revolution, magic, terror, joy, garlic, flowers, spells. Witches have always been women who dared to be groovy, courageous, aggressive, intelligent, nonconformist, explorative, curious, independent, sexually liberated, and revolutionary, which continued to stage dramatic protests, changing their name, but not their acronym, to reflect the specific cause against which they were protesting. Sister covens arose across the United States. But by 1970, the groups had largely disbanded. I wonder how much free love had to do with that and forced integration. But anywho, in the 1980s, however, witches returned to the political front of feminism combined with ecological concerns. Women and Life on Earth, an eco-feminist network, was formed in 1980 and carried out a march on the Pentagon in November of that year. In San Francisco, Starhawk, created by Miriam Simos, an eco-feminist witch, led 300 women in a ritual to support the march on the Pentagon. She later helped organize demonstrations at Diablo Canyon Nuclear Power Plant in California. Following the 2016 presidential election, witches once again emerged as a symbol of political resistance. Witches' covens began to spring up anew at protests across the nation, including at the Women's March on January 21st, 2017. Excuse me. The eruption of magic into the public sphere following the election of President Orange Man is thus part of a continuing tradition of political magic in the West, particularly here in America, in which the occult is harnessed to perform acts designed to influence viewers and participants' understanding and to protest the status quo. The use of magic and occult technologies is itself subversive, which is why we see it emerge frequently in the service of left of center causes. However, a few factors make the current emergence of political magic different from historical instances. The first is the prevalence of the internet and social media as vectors of both diffusion and confusion, performance of political magic. From the emergence of Pepe the Frog as an icon of the alt-right on the internet, image board, 4chan, to the widespread diffusion of Michael Hughes buying Trump ritual far beyond the original post on Medium in February 2017, the wide and instantaneous reach of the internet and social media has been instrumental in the spread of contemporary political spells. Moreover, some of these, like the Pepe the Frog meme, were created specifically for the internet. The mere on-screen appearance of the meme was construed as spreading success for the Trump campaign. Most communities practicing political magic today have a robust internet presence, and some exist exclusively online. The internet and social media do not, in and of themselves, cause political magic to erupt, but as a means of communication, they accelerate both the rate and scope of diffusion, reaching much larger audiences much faster than pre-electronic means of communication. In some cases, the effects can cause what began as practices limited to small communities to spread outside groups, threatening community boundaries and leading to boundary keeping restrictions. This article examines just such an instance among contemporary magical practitioners, highlighting issues of exclusion and inclusion in the practice of esoteric traditions. And certainly we've been talking about inclusion and exclusion of magical and spiritual knowledge and practices, at least in this sacred space, since what, 2007, since Yahoo 360. My very first message was, we are not, as descendants of the Middle Passage, being accepted like family, like friends, like comrades into ATR traditions. We see a much greater motivation to induct the Latinx community, the Hispanic community, certainly Brazil, Cuba, Santeria, and even some smaller islands. But the minute a Black American claims a tradition, seeks to operate in the tradition, we're questioned on credibility, we're questioned on authenticity, we're questioned on commitment, we're questioned on a knowledge and awareness. And so I have strongly advocated for self-empowerment, self-knowledge, self-awareness about these traditions. And though I operate from an international platform, my first priority certainly is the descendants of the Middle Passage that have been systematically left out of the loop of power and operation and administration of these practices and these traditions. We think that we need to leave the country. We need to travel water. We need to speak a foreign language to operate authentically within these traditions, negating our own legacy, our own historic footprint right here on Turtle Island as it relates to magical, spiritual, indigenous, aboriginal, Pan-African practice and tradition. A much more common effect of the internet and social media, more specifically, has been the increasing fragmentation of communities into echo chambers, sharing identical norms, values, and opinions, and the consequent polarization of society. So if you're only getting your information from the TikTok, from the Instagram, often from someone who's doing a copy and paste, it might be a well-evolved copy and paste. I told you there are applications that will completely suck out the transcripts of this podcast. And anyone can break it up into small pieces and pretend that they're their words. So copyrights are important. Legalizing your presence is important in social media, on the internet. This effect is visible among the entire political spectrum, but I'm particularly concerned where this polarizing, grouping together into an echo chamber of people who believe and think and understand just like you. Well, if the influencer has 1 million followers, but has no concrete, footprint within the traditions, but we're believing their ceremonies, we're believing their antics, we're buying into their Sunday, performances, and there's no authenticity there whatsoever. Then there are those that say, well, we create our own authenticity. So if you're creating a new practice, a new tradition, call it that. Don't pretend it's hoodoo. Don't pretend it's root work, conjure, obia, Ifa, Akan, Ewe, voodoo, Haitian voodoo, New Orleans. Don't pretend. Be authentic. Stand in your truth. Call it what it is. Well, I'm a dabbler. Call it what it is. But don't pretend that it's equal to those of us who've dedicated our entire lives to the vocation of spirituality and religion, to our entire lives to the vocation of ATR, traditional African-based religious systems, to those of us who've committed our entire lives to Pan-African spirituality and tradition. So we see this effect most visibly right now in the political spectrum, but is especially marked in the case of the emergence of right-wing religious extremism and the alt-right. You all believe when they say we are religious, when they say they are evangelicals standing up on the right, that they are devoid of magic and witchcraft. We spoke on that yesterday, and it is documented, well documented, that they are highly involved in magic and witchcraft. How else would you believe and follow and support and become a part of the Orange Man cult without witchcraft, without magic? It's certainly not logical. It's certainly not rational. It's certainly not reasonable. It's magic, beloved. Both these varieties of the extreme right are examined. The former in Damian Barry's article on the New Apostolic Reformation, and the latter in Eagle, E-G-I-L, Eagle Asprem's, A-S-P-R-E-M, Asprem's exploration of the emergence of the cult of Kek, K-E-K, on the image board 4chan. The articles in this special edition each explore the use of political magic in the context of specific new religious movements or esoteric groups. Eagle Asprem's article, The Magical Theory of Politics, Means Magic, and the Enchantment of Social Forces in the American Magic War. Again, his article is titled, The Magical Theory of Politics, Memes, Magic, and the Enchantment of Social Forces in the American Magic War. Frames the issues of examining the war between right and left, wing witches, magicians, and esoterics, set off by the election of the 45th president of the United States. So we live in an illusion, those of us here in this room who believe we are somehow isolated, we are on the margins, we somehow represent a small contingency of people within our community and certainly within America who are operating in these magical spaces. But these documents tell you exactly how widespread it is, and particularly from the one, the particular group, the red group, that we tend to think is so political and so wholesome and so religious and so conservative. And they're leading the front line of people utilizing magic for political gains. Greetings, Craig Burns. Welcome, welcome. Sage Rainbow Hall, thank you so much for being with me today. Greetings and salutations. Let me check my Blog Talk Radio. Area code 563-999-3763. 563-999-3763. My listen-in, call-in phone number. Press the number 1 on your telephone keypad. I will be more than happy to open your mic and address your question, comment, or concern. Asprem explores in depth the alt-right's use of memes to create an online esoteric religion with the aim of motivating political action and bringing about the election of the Orange Man. Analyzing the cult of Kek, the magic resistance and the magic reaction. Again, analyzing the cult of Kek, the magic resistance and the magic reaction, a right-wing counterattack against the magic resistance as oppositional movements standing in dialectical relationship to one another. He develops a theory of the use of magic in politics. He argues that each movement generates clusters of phenomenon that gain symbolic significance among followers, reinforcing the notion of supernatural or divine involvement and creating collective effervescence among participants. Common symbols and feelings of sacred significance create a shared sense of identity, and when associated with a characteristic figure, may constitute an emergent religion. Asprem's analysis is applicable not only to the examples he brings to bear, but in the data discussed in the other articles within this special issue. My article, Witchcraft of Political Resistance, Magic Responses to the 2016 Presidential Election in the United States, explores the magic resistance that emerged from the political left. It uses anthropologists and historians of religions Ernesto de Martino's concept of the crisis of presence to argue that the 2016 election created a numinous moment, numinous moment, Numinous, numinous moment that threatened the sense of safety and agency of left-wing magical practitioners, inspiring an appeal to the supernatural in a moment of extreme anxiety. It also applies the lens of anthropologist and historian James C. Scott, arguing that the magic resistance is a form of expressive culture that uses imagery, artistry, and symbols in creative ways to craft a response to political oppression that is as much aesthetic and performative as it is religious. Finally, it examines a variety of responses within the magical communities to the viral diffusion of resistance magic as reflecting ethics, aesthetics, and beliefs and constituting boundary work. The fragmentation of magical communities on the left mirrors the fragmentation of the political left more broadly. Purity tests, virtue signaling may temporarily raise the status of performers, but in the long run, undercut efforts at consensus building, and concerted political action. Despite the diffusion of the magic resistance beyond the boundaries of the esoteric community, it has not yet achieved the kind of unity of purpose necessary to bring about effective political change. Predictably, the magic resistance has only further inflamed the passions of those on the evangelical right wing, who see it as proof positive of the need to counter satanic oppression to Trump's presidency. Damon Berry's contribution, Voting in the Kingdom, Prophecy Voters, the New Apostolic Reformation, and Christian Support for Trump. I'll say that again. Damon Berry's contribution, titled Voting in the Kingdom, Prophecy Voters, the New Apostolic Reformation, and Christian Support for Trump, addresses one of the most puzzling questions to emerge from the 2016 election and its aftermath. Evangelical Christian support for the Orange Man, a figure who has never been especially religious and whose actions appeared to be counter-Christian, counter-religious, and to have violated some, if not many, deeply held beliefs within the tenets of contemporary American Christianity. I say it's witchcraft. Berry explains how within the New Apostolic Reformation movement, a charismatic evangelical form of Protestant Christianity, prophecies arose alleging that God had chosen Donald Trump to lead the United States as part of a divine plan to create the kingdom of God on earth. For the New Apostolic Reformation, Trump's character flaws are actually signs that he is God's chosen. Berry terms voters persuaded by this idea, prophecy voters. However, the New Apostolic Reformation is hardly alone at the fringes of Christianity. Its attitude represents that of a substantial number of evangelical Protestant Christians in the United States who are part of expanding networks of congregations existing outside of denominational boundaries. And we certainly see them setting up camp for at least 25 good years now in Africa, on the continent, places like Uganda. Examine Uganda's laws and politics of the last 20 years. DRC Congo. Examine the DRC Congo's experience, laws, in history of the last 20 years. Just examine the footprint of evangelical Christians. T.D. Jakes is one of them, has invested a great deal of financial resources on the mother continent. For these churches, denominational history and theology are less important than evangelicism and the millenarian messianic eschatology, 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 in which the United States is divinely mandated to spread the gospel throughout the globe. They embrace a dualistic view of a cosmic struggle between God and Satan for control of the world, in which conspiracy theorists and evil plots to subvert God's plan play key roles. Yet their eschatology, eschatology, is ultimately optimistic rather than embracing a catastrophic view of the end time. They see the world as a perfectible if people would hand in hand with God to bring about this perfectible kingdom. In this worldview, the left and everything it stands for are the personification of evil, while the right, with the orange man as the leader, is literally acting at the direction of God. And from this mix of conspiracy theories and eschatological emergences, spiritual warfare, a cluster of techniques involving prayer and gifts of the Spirit, i.e., speaking in tongues, healing, and prophecy, aimed at protecting President 45 from his enemies, and therefore from God's enemies. Foremost among these is Pastor Frank Amadeus' POTUS Shield, an internet-based synchronous form of collective power. Politics aside, the similarities between synchronous spiritual techniques are both sides of the political religious spectrum is notable. Like POTUS Shield, the bind Trump rituals of the magic resistance, and Hecate Demeter's magical battle for America are internet-based and designed to be performed synchronously by users in different parts of the globe. The assumption is that the large concentration of people working simultaneously strengthens the efficacy of the spiritual work. And I often say at the very top of my show, spiritual power lies in its efficacy, its ability to bring about, to manifest real world, tangible, living results right here and right now in this present moment in time space. It is impossible to write about magic without addressing the issue of belief. Readers could rightly ask, to what extent do any of these practitioners believe in the efficacy of their ritual actions? As the author has argued elsewhere, belief is a slippery concept that has been poorly understood by anthropologists, often treated as equivalent to faith. In practice, belief is contextual and emergent. It varies within communities as well as over the lifespan of an individual, typically emerging in times of crisis. We talked yesterday about people standing up in these sacred spaces, in these churches, and these temples, inwardly knowing what they're hearing does not make sense. But are they operating from belief or are they operating from faith? This pattern holds true in each of the cases described in this special document. That said, belief is a key issue in a time when it stands as a marker of political and social identity. It plays a greater or lesser role in the behavior of the various communities profiled within this article. Belief in the power of prayer and in millenary Oh my goodness. I get tongue tied every time I say this word. Millenarian, Millenarian, millenarian prophecy is central to the identities of evangelical Christian followers of the New Apostolic Reformation discussed in Barry's article. In contrast, the four chain users who generated the Keck meme magic described in Aspram's article had a more detached, ironic stance towards their practice. Because often these people in these internet and social spaces are not religious at all and probably do not believe and understand from a religious perspective the way at least evangelical Christians, profess to believe. So these are trolls in social media, like those that I described in the YouTube chat spaces, who decided, following this lead of the evangelicals, to create this cult of Keck to basically troll people online to vote for the Orange Man. The practitioners of the magic resistance hold a range of attitudes, from the purely materialistic. We talked about that in the last two episodes. Magic as a form of protest, performance art, or catharsis, to the more engaged magic of an esoteric technology that wields actual power in the world. Individuals may experience that range in their own attitudes, feelings, a burst of engagement during a binding, or greater detachment during the time between bindings. However, belief in democratic principles, liberalism, feminism, science, plays a central role in the identities of left-wing magical practitioners. In short, belief in magic is less central to the identities of the communities profiled in these case studies than is belief in larger political ideologies that motivate them. To sum up, the articles in this special issue of Nova Religio addresses a gap in the literature examining intersections of religion, magic, and politics in contemporary North America. They approach political magic as an essentially religious phenomenon in that it deals with the spirit world and attempts to motivate human behavior through the use of symbols. But our community is often motivated by attempts to transform human behavior through the use of symbols, covering a range of practices from the far right to the far left. The article argues against prevailing scholarly treatments of the use of esoteric techniques as a predominantly right-wing phenomenon, showing how they have also been operationalized by the left in recent history. They showcase the creativity of magic as a form of human cultural expression and demonstrate how magic coexists with rationality in contemporary Western settings. So it's important that we come away understanding that, when we're judged as being witches, when we're judged as being pagan, when we're judged as being outside the realm of God and spirit and spirituality, those of us who are committed to indigenous, aboriginal, Pan-African spirituality and tradition, ATR, traditional African-based religious systems, we are certainly no less important than the quote-unquote religious communities that are indeed operating in realms of magic, often in secrecy. We are certainly of no less importance. And presently, with what's going on now in the world, I got about 15 minutes, so I'm going to try and wrap it up so I don't go over as I've been doing. It's more important than ever that those of you who are evolving spiritual beings come out of the closet. We've got to bring hoodoo, root work, and conjure out of the closet. And certainly it will require you fighting your inner demons as it relates to your relationships. Well, what are my people going to say? What is my mom and them going to say when they find out that I'm, not on board with this church thing? And too many of you are walking, that middle line. You're showing up in those religious spaces, which only further encourages that community that you are, still actively committed. And then you're creeping around at night in these sacred spaces, virtually as well as in the real world, like the couple that showed up at my house at, 15 minutes to midnight last night. And you're creeping around in secrecy. And we now have documented proof that they're not being secret. What they're hiding is their connection to. They're trying to sort of create that illusion of separation from who we are in the quote unquote churches versus what they're doing, in the political arenas, virtually and online. But ultimately, the benefit is for the Orange Man and the motivations of that particular group and leaning. Greetings be Megnon. With candle magic and spiritual baths, how long does it take to manifest results? That depends on who's doing it, where you're getting your instruction from, and what you're trying to achieve. And let me go back. Who's doing it? Have you gotten instruction? Have you been mentored? Have you been taught? Are you just reading from a book? Are you copying and pasting from, something you've seen on the internet? Are you following worst case scenario demonstrations in TikTok? And I want to be clear, when I say worst case demonstrations, I'm not talking about these active ceremonies with dozens of more people that you're seeing streamed to social media in Haiti, in Togo, in Benin, in Yoruba land, even here in the States. I'm talking about these singular individual personalities that all you see is that one corner of their house or that one space, that they set up to look real magical. You see nothing of their commitment to the community. You see nothing of their relationship to the community. You see nothing of communal gatherings, which I have brought receipts for decades now. You see none of that. But their likes and their follower counts are in the hundreds of thousands. And that's because there are too many who are following them, beloved, who sort of fall into some of the categories that I've talked about today and yesterday. They're really vibrating at a low frequency. Call it spiritual, but it's the lowest frequency possible. So they're only interested in feeding their flesh, feeding carnality, getting, lower vibratory responses from this work. They're not considering a spiritual bath, a spiritual cleansing for their own personal growth, edification, protection, evolution. And so you see it certainly on the internet. You've heard me say you see it also in many of these botanicas. Most botanicas are not operated by individuals who are operating authentically within these traditions, particularly with the emergence of the internet. Anyone can set up an Amazon shop, anyone can set up an Etsy shop, anyone can set up a botanica online and then sell you wholesale surplus supplies. Can't really tell you what it is. They can't really tell you how to use it. They can't really tell you how to work it. And in the worst case scenario, they get real imaginative and create these magical formulas and ceremonies that have no historic footprint at all. None whatsoever. And that's why those of you who've been following me now since Yahoo 360, remember Yahoo 360 and MySpace and other sites at that time where there was a spiritual battle going on because the Black community was really beginning to wake up visibly online as it relates to ATR. Whereas our beloved cousins, the Latinx and Hispanic communities, have been in these traditions almost since the beginnings of their being enslaved south of the border here in the Americas, where the Pope and the Catholic Church proclaimed an edict that if they just surrendered to Catholicism, they would be allowed to maintain their superstitious foolishness, in their opinions, on their off time. And so they did. And we know that they created maroon encampments as well, away from the plantation spaces of Cuba, Puerto Rico, Brazil, Venezuela, etc. And were able to maintain a really authentic demonstration of many ethnic groups, the Fon, the Akan, the Ewe, certainly the Yoruba, where a large grouping of Yorubas were brought to South and Central America. And so it feels more organized than what we have here in America. And again, looks and feels can be an illusion. There's certainly well-organized ATR communities in New Orleans, in Louisiana, in America. But again, they're not getting 100,000 likes. They're not gaining 1 million followers. And they're often not interested in entertaining your foolishness. They're often not interested in entertaining, and they're often not interested in entertaining your foolishness. So we don't see them there. I have friends and family from Nigeria, authentic practitioners, 60, 70, 80 years old, who are in social media, who are giving you hardcore information. They don't have 100,000 followers. They don't have 100,000 likes. And like me, some of you claim they're boring. But the performer, minus the sad card, the actors in these social media spaces, like I said, you only see in a little corner of their reality. You're not seeing them in the community. You're not seeing them in the public spaces with their demonstration. You all love that. It feeds your desire for entertainment. Just like the hip hop beats feed your desire for entertainment. And I'm shocked how many duplicated posts, are basically repeating the same thing about the hip hop beef, but each one has, 50,000 likes, 100,000 likes, 25,000 likes, because you all just like the drama. You like the entertainment that comes with the drama. But certainly there are principalities, powers that utilize that human instinct to keep you confused, to keep you distracted, to keep you not standing on your square, to keep you from not doing your work. So while you all are worried about, petty witchcraft spells, and spells are so temporary, we now have evidence that the Republicans and the Retrumplicans and the so-called religious folk in America have long been using magic and witchcraft to control American minds and American politics. We talked a lot about symbolism. How many people own a cross? Silver, gold, doesn't matter. How many people own a cross and don't even go to church? How many own a cross and don't even claim Christianity? I have a real nice silver cross, gemstone studded silver cross. It's voodoo. It's voodoo. The cross is an archetype that predates Christianity. But once you're programmed to see certain things, to see certain images, we instinctively begin to make assumptions that are often not true. That has been done to us as a people. You see a black man minding his business, riding down the road. How often, how many days of a week are they, victimized by the police, victimized by the Karens, victimized just on face value? You look like you don't belong here. You look like you don't live in this neighborhood. You look like you're not of God. You don't look like that's the mindset right now of America. And we hate to say it, we hate to acknowledge it, but we're not that educated in America. We're just not. We think we are. We got toys and gadgets and material things and designer labels and clothes, but our educational system is suffering. Oh my God, the grammar and spelling that I often see in social media that we try to mask as, acronyms. Oh, well, it's just a new thing. No, you can't spell. No, you have no sense of grammar. And I'm not just picking on English. I'm picking on everybody internationally who can't even speak your own language, but you're attempting to insult, proselytize, prostitute, solicit your belief systems onto the rest of the world in social media. And you can't even spell social media in your indigenous tongue or in English. But magic does not always require reason, does not always require logic. You just got to see it, be exposed to it, and believe it in your mind. So, like the cult of Keck, in the presence of this, frog-like character, they were able to project the belief that everybody was down with the Trump. We know, you and I know, that there are people right now who are, posting hashtag Free Palestine, that are posting, the Palestinian flag, that, which is great in theory, have no intentions of voting, have no intentions of doing anything, proactive, have no intentions on writing a letter, shooting an email, to their governmental representatives, have no intentions of doing anything, but find the acts and the actions in social media just entertaining. They're just bored and they don't have anything else to do. We know that there are those in social media who get their kick from trying to push your buttons, from trying to post, irrelevant content at the minimum, if not overtly offensive content. Primarily for entertainment, not always even for likes and follows. I've validated everybody's identity in YouTube. Many of you don't even have a legitimate profile. Many of you don't even have a legitimate name.
90 seconds.
I don't mean your government name. I mean, your username is great, but if your username is not consistent and you got 500 usernames, you're using a fake name. You often have a fake picture or no picture in the YouTube chat. We see that in Facebook, Twitter, but it's prevalent in YouTube. There are ways to sign into YouTube through your browser without actually using your account.
60 seconds.
And people would do that to then spread hate, racism, classism, disinformation in the social media spaces. And sometimes that's real obvious. It is political, it is religious, it is spiritual content. Sometimes it's medical content. I've seen some herbal content in the last 2 weeks that's just unbelievably erroneous. I mean, a simple Google search would discredit some of the herbal posts that I've been seeing just recently in the last 2 weeks. But some of them got 70,000 likes, 50,000 likes, because it looks good, it sounds good, it fits a certain demographic.
10 seconds.
I've got 8 seconds left in the show. I'm certainly grateful for each and every one of your participation, your listenership. I certainly invite you to join me. I certainly invite you to join me here again on tomorrow at high noon U.S. Central Standard Time for more revolutionary hoodoo, New Orleans voodoo secrets and recipes. I also am going to give a free shout out to one of my favorite people, Dr. Rashad Ritchie. If you don't know who Dr. Rashad Ritchie is, if you ain't never heard of I Wish a Karen Would, you better ask somebody, okay? Dr. Rashad Ritchie comes on each and every day at 1:30 Central Standard Time, so that's 12:30 Eastern Standard Time on the TYT network. TYT. So if you have cable, TYT network. If you have Hulu, TYT network. But you can also go directly to his page in YouTube. The show is called Indisputable with Dr. Rashad Ritchie. It comes on every day, my time, Central Standard Time at 1:30. You don't want to miss it. I wish a Karen would. I'll see you tomorrow at high noon. All is truly and indeed a blessing. Ashe, Asheo, and Ashe.
Congo Square. The Omas Indians prepared this place for us centuries before our arrival. A sacred spot where corn festivals were celebrated. The Omas Indians prepared this place for us centuries before our arrival. Congo Square, a sacred spot where corn festivals were celebrated. And as the colonizers came, our hosts, the Omas Indians, they pushed aside our hosts. The colonizers came and pushed aside our hosts and introduced us in chains. And by the late 1700s, we somehow, recognizing the sacredness of Les Places de Congo, we somehow, and the how of our somehow persuasive methodologies is not clear at this moment. The how is not clear. How our persuasive methodologies work is not clear at this moment, but nevertheless, even as slaves, we crafted and created a space where we could be free to be we. And thusly we countered the sacrilegiousness of the French, giving great homage to our ancestors as well as giving praise and thanks to our red-blooded brothers and sisters. This is an oral libation toast to Congo Square, to Native Americans, to our ancestors who made a circle out of a square and gave us a way to save ourselves from the transformatory ugliness of America, which refuses to recognize the spirituality of life, which refuses to recognize the spirituality of life and celebrates death with crosses, double and triple crosses, the middle passage, the first cross, Christianity, the double cross, and capitalism, the ultimate triple coup de grace cross of our captivity. But the terror of crosses notwithstanding, we sang, we beat, we be, we was and is. Hail Congo Square. Congo Square. Our African gods have not been obliterated. They have merely retreated inside the beat of us. Inside the beat of us. Our African gods have not been obliterated. They have merely retreated inside the beat of us until we are ready to release them into a world that we recreate. A world held by the beat. Beating of black heart drum. Heart beat. At this place, beat, heart beat, we beating place in new world space. Being in place in new world, preserving our ancient faith. Our dance is the God walk, our music the God talk. First thing we do, let's get together, circle ourselves into community. No beginning, no end, connected together and singing, ringing, singing in a ring. Second, let's be original, aboriginal. Be what we were before we became what we are. Be bambula dance, be banza music, and sing song words which have no English translation. Third, let us remember. Let us remember never to forget. Even when we can't remember the specifics, we must retain the essentials. Let us remember never to forget. Even when we can't remember the specifics, we must retain the essentials. The bounce, the blood flow, the feel, the spirit grow, energy. Must retain and pass on the essential us-ness that others want to dissipate with out of us. Whoa! But no matter how much of us they prohibit, no matter how much of us they prohibit, deep inside us is us. Deep inside us is us. Remains us inside and needs only the beat to set us free. The beat to free us. It is morning, a Sunday, a field without shade, but dark with the people black of us in various shades, eclipsing the sun with our elegance. We are centuries later now, and still this sacred ground calls us to remember, to be. We are centuries later now, and still this sacred ground calls us to remember, to be. Beat Congo Square. Be Congo Square. Beat. Beat. Congo Square. Beat Congo swag. Beat. 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 Remember. Remember. Remember.
Thank you for using Blog Talk Radio. Goodbye.